Let's talk quarterback. Why don't you kick things off?
Yeah, we're back to Minshew season, playing the Bengals. Bengals are a pretty good matchup. Cincinnati is the league's 5th most extreme pass funnel defense through week 13. They allow the 2nd highest dropback success rate of any team since week 8. I have other metrics here, but just suffice it to say, folks, that the Bengals are soft against the pass. I did find it interesting that in basically like 1.5 games without Jonathan Taylor, the Colts are 6% over their expected drop back rate. So they are kind of leaning toward the pass, which is way different than what we saw with Jonathan Taylor when he was at full health and they were finally sort of putting him at the center of the offense. I think there's a chance we could see some inflated volume for Minshew and the pass catchers for the Colts.
The Jonathan Taylor thing I think is going to be really interesting because the Colts are in the thick of it right now. Like they're a playoff team right now. And so I don't know if they're in or I think they're in right now, but regardless, I think that it could become a situation where they force Jonathan Taylor back maybe a little earlier than expected. And that's going to be very interesting from a fantasy perspective, because if he's back week 16 instead of 17 or 18, then all of a sudden that's huge for teams, especially, I have Jonathan Taylor on a team that locked in a bye. And so all of a sudden he might actually be back whenever I need him to be back.
I also think that the aforementioned Jake Browning being able to keep the Bengals offense viable, on what is that phrase? Keep them not on task, on schedule.
Yeah.
That improves the fantasy environment for everybody involved in this Colts Bengals game.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to go to Josh Dobbs as long as he starts. I'm still of the belief that he's going to at least get a chance with Justin Jefferson.
He'll be a quick hook.
It would be. I agree. If he screws up early, it's probably a good chance that we see Nick Mullins step in there and do something. But I don't know. I think that you're on the opposite side, that you're ready. Are you ready to move on from Josh Dobbs? Like, do you think the Minnesota should?
But his performance against the Bears was that bad.
It was bad.
It was frightening.
Yeah, he lost that game for them for sure. But I don't know. To me, I'm looking at Nick Mullins. I'm like, is he good? Probably not.
No.
Jaron Hall, probably not. I mean, like the resumes of these players that would replace Josh Dobbs, it's not even like Flacco-esque. Like I feel better about a Flacco than I would these two guys, because Mullins thrived in a really good situation, as we've seen other quarterbacks thrive in. And then Jaron Hall's like a 5th round rookie. I mean, it's tough to really back that.
I mean, I know it's really the tiniest sample size ever, but Jaron Hall was kind of okay before he suffered that concussion in the first half.
Yeah, but then Josh Dobbs came in and was amazing.
I know.
So maybe it was a matchup thing. I don't know. My thing is, I think that Josh Dobbs sticks around, gets to start this week. He does get Las Vegas. Vegas has actually been a below average team for quarterbacks in adjusted points allowed this year. They're ranked 21st in adjusted points allowed. But Minnesota, they have the 10th highest implied team total. We've seen Dobbs' upside. And I think the number one reason here is Justin Jefferson is going to be back.
Yeah. Right.
And, like you said, I do think that you're right, that the leash is short for Josh Dobbs. That to me is the risk. If Dobbs plays a full game, I probably feel best about him versus any of the streamers this week. Probably.
Yeah, but Kevin O'Connell has made it very clear that he's not like the locked in starter. So we know that going into it.
Yeah, so it's risky, but I do think Dobbs makes sense.
I have my co-host Joe Flacco. If he does get the start against Jacksonville this week, apparently Dorian Thompson-Robinson could possibly start. I don't see it. Flacco was good. Flacco was fine.
I mean, he at least threw the ball down the field.
He did 500 plus air yards for Joe
Elijah
Flacco.
Moore actually being used as a down the field threat.
So yeah, I mean, Jacksonville's allowing the 4th highest drop back success rate since week 8. 8th highest adjusted net yards per attempt, which is a good measurement just of general sacks general passing success. And Flacco is going to throw a lot. That's just part of, I think, just part of the Joe Flacco thing. Pat Doherty joked today on the Roto World Football Show that Flacco, when he signed his contract, probably said, "Look, I'm only doing this if you can guarantee me 40 plus dropbacks a game."
Yeah, because he did that with New York.
He did.
Yeah.
So if we had 46 dropbacks last week against the Rams, 5% over their expected dropback rate against LA. So we're gonna see some volume, and we saw last night against the Bengals that the Jaguars secondary is pretty soft.
Yeah. I think he's an interesting play this week for sure. And then we can also go back to Jake Browning, who gets Indianapolis. You mentioned this matchup, but I'm going to look at the other side. Like I said, one of the best calls of the year last week for us, I think, with Jake Browning. But Browning can at least beat bad defenses. I think we saw last week, right? We see him do well against Jacksonville. A lot of people wrote him off because he played Pittsburgh, which divisional game. We know that Pittsburgh can get to the quarterback at the very least. And then before that, he stepped in for Lamar Jackson against Baltimore. He actually wasn't that bad against Baltimore. Like stepping in cold like that in Baltimore.
Right.
Like he didn't play that poorly. So our sample size now of Browning is an okay game, a bad game, and a really good game. I mean, he was 32 of 37 last night. Completion percentage has its flaws. Don't get me wrong, but like that's wild. That is a wild completion rate. Jacksonville this past week, they're the 4th best matchup by adjusted fantasy points allowed. Indy this week is the 11th best matchup. So it's a little bit of a downgrade, but he's got the weapons around him. He's flashed some upside with rushing. He had 40 yards against Baltimore. He had 22 against Jacksonville. So I think that there's some intrigue here with Browning. I think that he's a decent streamer.
You want to hear a funny stat, JJ?
Yeah.
Jake Browning leads all passers in week 13 and completion rate over expected. He was 20% over his expected completion rate.
That's wild.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's absolutely wild. I mean, he was great. And then they decide to not put the ball in his hands. They give him to Tyler Boyd and he throws that pick.
Oh, what a terrible play. What was that? All right.